Hi, I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos Astrological Conversations every Sunday on YouTube and podcast, as streamed through radio station in Seattle, and you can subscribe. And these are my astrological commentaries, Now.Chat. And it is the first eclipse of this calendar year in Sagittarius. It is the full moon opposite of the sun that is now in Gemini. It's 5 degrees of Sagittarius. The details are a little more specific. It could be that it is at 5 degrees and 25 minutes. So it's early. It is ruled by Jupiter, and it's all about our sense of adventure, our sense of travel, our sense of risk, our sense of philosophy, our opinions, our belief systems, our higher education, our religions, our philosophies. I think I said philosophies, but it is so entrained into all of that and potent because of many elements. We had, okay, right now, as I had just said in our last talk on Sunday, was we're liberating multiplicities, many choices. But at this moment, it's a moon we're talking about, and it's feeling. How do we feel? That's really the message with all of this. Now, that might seem like what it is, a fire sign, Sagittarius. It is instinctual, therefore it's the in that trine and ruled by Jupiter that has now just crossed into it's entered Pisces for 2.5 months until the 28th, 29th of July, which is just up to 2 degrees. And then it'll return at the very end of December, just before the eve, I think on the 29th, 30th, to continue through the 30 degrees of Pisces. It is the mystical connection to the source. It's not necessarily linear thinking. So therefore, it's really a wonderful adventure to enter into this union with our spiritual source of connection. Because how do you do that? People say, listen to the signs. Yes, listen to yourself. And how do you get there? One is, I was just expanding my own sense of classes, because the opposite is with the North Node in Gemini. And it's classes, education, and it's somatic. It's the body and dancing and movement, not just partly just to break up the situation, by that the matter of things, because matter, as Einstein says, the matter is not just a mechanical system. It's not just isolated details, but it's rather a relationship. It's all about a complex reference of relationships. And the one missing one, possibly with everything when it's out of kilter, is that with ourself. And who is ourself? It's not just what we're conditioned to. That is part of it. But the problem is that authentic? Is that really me? Probably not. Big areas or even categories of it. It gets down into the whys of who, and you can get tossed around up there in the mental sphere, even if you write down lots, and even if you have little circles with the word inside and the lines everywhere that go stream out of it, and then try to write your 3 pages, such as Julia Cameron says of the right brain. And there's so many wonderful ways. And was it the right brain? No, that was another book. But so wonderful teachings. But the thing is, our body knows a lot, and it is obviously it's part of us. It's not us. We are our spirit, and we're connected, and we need to know how that body feels. And one way is to move through the music. Pisces, it's all the expanded, without boundaries, cosmic collection, collective unknown, including the vibrational system of the whole spectrum. And music, of course, is vibrational. That's how I'm connecting it, just to your logical minds that might wonder why I'm saying this. And dance with feet. It rules the feet, Pisces does. This is the time just to stand up and move around and engage and see how that feels. Spread the toes. I just listened to Bernadette Pleasant on the Shift Network. I started a class with her, and this is really her teachings right off the bat. And some of it felt even a little uncomfortable. As much as I love motion, I love to dance. I grew up taking ballet. I stretch all the time, love yoga. But there's a point where you go back, what's familiar? Yeah, thinking and being maybe a little distracted out of your element, but that's the whole point. We want to get back home into who we are. And as she said, we've been through a storm. And a storm, as we know, breaks up land, shifts water into places where it wouldn't have necessarily is useful. It you could be in the eye of it. There's just so many elements that to get how we feel and listening to ourselves and getting connected with senses. I'm going to bring up the chart because I'm beginning to realize that I can definitely bring this more to home. The Awakener, Uranus in Taurus. Venus, its ruler, connect of love, of senses, it rules Taurus and it rules Libra. And it's right united with our thinker cap, Mercury, that actually bridges between the material of the physical and the spiritual of the depths. You know, there were two twins, and essentially it's trying to connect these always, always. And it will in any kind of fashion it can bring connections and do it so that perhaps it surprises us and we don't get we'll see it easier and it may be harder. I say that because Uranus is that surprising, unpredictable element. It rotates backwards, it goes on its side, just the physicality of it. We are here to reframe our moon, that Sagittarius philosophical belief structure. We're getting unrooted. We have already been physically, and now it's time to really, we have half a year before the next solar eclipse in Sagittarius to reframe our whole philosophy, because the world around us is totally changing, what was a pandemic, and continues to. The past, and it shows by the south node, which is the tail end of this orbit between the moon and the sun in the orbit. It's a point in space, and it's 18 months cycle, and it's on its last part in January 18th. It'll go into the next axis. But right now it's in Sagittarius, and we are ready to release. It's necessary to reframe our and connect with what do we feel? What is our belief systems? Because what we feel is what we get. You know, Flip Wilson used to say, what you see is what you get. Well, yeah, how do you see it? Do you feel it? Do you see it? Do you think it? It's internalized. You know, we've been home, and the idea was that we would regroup to ourselves and try to shed some of the distractions and some of the input of life. But you know what? We're all online, we're on the television, and we're still getting inundated. And yet we have the time to ideally refocus, make those affirmations of what one wants to shed. Right now, this is the time where you can intentionally write out, dance out, sing out, feel out, write, all these different ways of communicating, which are not going to be linear necessarily. It's in Sagittarius, and it's co-ruled by the modern ruler. It's squaring Neptune's involved. I'm thinking so rapidly, I apologize here, because generally Jupiter is ruled by Neptune, and it co-rules also Neptune. I mean, Pisces is what I'm saying. And And that's very nonlinear. That is my point. So we can look at, we have a big T square here too. That means there's friction of conflict that wants resolution right here between the Mars of our action applying later in the very security basis Cancer is opposing, will be opposing directly Pluto of transformation in the structure and rules. It wants to totally transform it. And who is dictating, you might say? Still Eris, the goddess of discord, as it said, but the truth teller. She wants us to tell our truth. And this is so far below and above all the other energies of Jupiter, and it akins to Neptune, we might say, the ultimate truth of things. And so that activation is very current. And we need to be gentle with ourselves. We need to rewild ourselves, find that relationship with our self interior, to nurture ourselves, Later, as Jupiter will go retrograde, is when we will have that opportunity. And that'll be later in June, I believe. I don't have the date. Oh boy. So things are getting dissolved. Those painful disillusionments, we can see it that way. Like David Spangler, a Finhorn community in Scotland that was begun in the 70s. It's still a wonderful center. He said that it's the abundance is consciousness of wholeness. We're all parts of things. And that's where, rather than be fearful of it, just learn to reconnect more. So I hope, and I'm so thrilled that you listened to this full moon lunar eclipse update. There's many to hear, but rather than go through too much of this, hey, we have the next solar one on June 10th. And there's also cosmic, well, I'm trying to say there's cosmos this Saturday. And I have Omari Martin, who is will be a speaker at NOWCHAT, which is a wonderful conference every year. Laura Nalbandian puts it on. If you don't join, you can always pick through and choose a different speakers. And I hear that next year it might be physical. We don't know yet. But the fact is, he will be talking, or Mari will be talking about careers and how we're taking these elements. It's astropreneurship that he coins. So, adios. Thank you. Mahalo. Tusen tak. That's every language. That's 1,000 thanks in Norwegian. See you again. Okay.